Verse for opening a sutra. The unsurpassed profound and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of aeons. I now see and hear it, receive and uphold it, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. The Flower Adornment Sutra, Chapter 2. The Manifestations of the Thus Come One. Sutra. At that time, the Bodhisattvas and all the world rulers had these thoughts. What are the grounds of the Buddhas? What are the states of the Buddhas? What are the ways in which the Buddhas bestow aid? What are the practices of the Buddhas? What are the powers of the Buddhas? What are the fearlessnesses of the Buddhas? What are the samadhis of the Buddhas? What are the spiritual powers of the Buddhas? What kinds of self-mastery do the Buddhas have? What kinds of indestructibility do the Buddhas have? What are the Buddha's eyes like? What are the Buddha's ears like? What are the Buddha's noses like? What are the Buddha's tongues like? What are the Buddha's bodies like? What are the Buddha's minds like? What are the auras around the Buddha's bodies like? What is the light of the Buddha's like? What are the Buddha's sounds like? What is the wisdom of the Buddhas like? We only hope the world-honored one will take pity on us and reveal and explain these for us. Moreover, all the Buddhas in oceans of worlds throughout the 10 directions, for the sake of the Bodhisattvas, spoke of oceans of worlds, oceans of beings, oceans of arrangements, of Dharma realms, oceans of Buddhas paramitas, oceans of Buddhas liberations, oceans of Buddhas transformations, oceans of Buddhas proclamations, oceans of Buddhas titles, oceans of Buddhas lifespans. The Buddha spoke of oceans of all bodhisattvas' vows, oceans of all bodhisattvas' tendencies, oceans of all bodhisattvas' aids to the way, oceans of all bodhisattvas' vehicles, oceans of all bodhisattvas' practices, oceans of all bodhisattvas' transcendence, oceans of all bodhisattvas' spiritual powers, oceans of all bodhisattvas' paramitas, oceans of all bodhisattvas' grounds, and oceans of all bodhisattvas' wisdom. We hope the Buddha, the world-honored one, will explain these for us. At that time, by virtue of the bodhisattva's awesome spiritual powers, sound spontaneously poured forth from within the clouds of offerings and pronounced the following verses. Through limitless aeons, the Buddha perfected his cultivation. At the foot of the Bodhi tree, he realized proper enlightenment. In order to rescue beings, he manifests bodies everywhere, like clouds filling the skies to the ends of time. He helps beings sever all of their doubts, then arouses their great faith and understanding. He completely vanquishes their boundless woes, so they experience the peace and happiness of the Buddhas. Countless bodhisattvas equal to dust particles in length arrive at this gathering and behold the Buddha, wishing to respond to the needs in their minds. The Buddha, in proclaiming wondrous Dharma, severs their doubts. How should we understand the Buddha's grounds? How should we regard the thus come one state? Boundless are the ways in which the Buddhas bestow aid. May the Buddha explain this Dharma so all can attain purity. What are the aspects of the Buddha's practice, and how can we wisely understand and enter those? The Buddha's powers are pure and vast beyond any bounds. For the sake of the Bodhisattvas, please instruct us. What are the vast, great samadhis? What are the dharmas or fearlessness of their pure practice? The functions of their spiritual powers cannot be reckoned. May you accord with beings' wishes and speak of them. The Buddhas, Dharma kings, are like world rulers, invincible. They act with total self-mastery. This and the other vast and great dharmas, please proclaim for our benefaction. How is it that the Buddha's eyes have no measure, and his eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body are that way too? And how is it that his mind is measureless as well? Please show us so that we can know those expedients. As the oceans of lands and oceans of beings, and the oceans of all arrangements of Dharma realms, and the oceans of all Buddhas, which are boundless too. Please discuss all these for the Buddha's disciples. How can one live forever, the seas of all thought and reckoning, and universally enter the oceans of expedience for liberation, as well as the oceans of all the Dharma doors that they are, all in this Bodhimanda, wish that the Buddha would proclaim this. At that time, the world-honored one, knowing what the Bodhisattvas were thinking, emitted from his mouth, from between his teeth, as many lights as there are dust motes in the Buddha land. For example, there was a light from multitudes of precious flowers that shone everywhere, a light that produced various sounds to enhance the Dharma realm, a light of softly trailing ethereal clouds, a light of Buddhas seated in Bodhimandas and displaying spiritual transformations throughout the 10 directions, a light in the form of a canopy composed of clouds and scintillating jewels, a light that suffused the Dharma realm without obstruction. There was a light that pervasively adorned all Buddha lands, an extraordinary light from the creation of pure, precious banners of Vajra, a light that universally graced all Bodhimandas, where Bodhisattvas assemble, a light that resonated with exquisite tones, praising all Buddha's epithets. There were those lights and others such as those, as numerous as dust motes in the Buddha land. Each and every light, further, had a retinue of lights as numerous as dust motes in the Buddha land. These lights all came in myriad of exquisite, precious hues and shone everywhere throughout the 10 directions, each illuminating as many seas of worlds as there are dust motes in the 100,000,000 Buddha lands. Within that illumination, all the Bodhisattva multitudes in those seas of worlds were able to see this flower treasury adorn a sea of worlds. By means of the Buddha's spiritual power, those lights spoke verses before all those assemblies of Bodhisattvas. Through countless aeons, the Buddha did oceans of practices, making offerings to oceans of Buddhas in the 10 directions. He transforms and liberates oceans of beings, who become wonderfully enlightened honored ones, of universal illumination. Clouds appear magically from his pores. Their radiance lights up the 10 directions. Those ripe for teaching open to enlightenment. They strive for Bodhi, pure and unhindered. The Buddha traveled every path and way, teaching and nurturing beings, helping them mature. So boundless are his spiritual powers and self-mastery that in one thought he brings them to liberation. The Bodhi tree with its wondrous money gems has a myriad ornaments most sublime. In its shade the Buddha realized proper enlightenment and shone with a magnificent universal resplendence. His booming roar resounds in the 10 directions, as he everywhere preaches the Dharma of still quiescence, catering to beings' wishes and delights. He employs sundry expedients to help them understand. The Buddha has cultivated to perfection paramitas, as numerous as the dust motes in 1,000 lands. He has fully achieved all the powers. All of you should go and make obeisance. Disciples of the Buddha, numerous as the dust motes in the land, joyfully gather from the 10 directions, having rained down clouds of offerings, They are now before the Buddha, eagerly gazing upward. One sound from the thus come one is yet limitless. He can give discourses as deep as the mighty ocean. He rains wondrous Dharma everywhere in response to beings' minds. You ought to go see that doubly perfect honored one. All the vows of the Buddhists of the 3 periods of time are proclaimed beneath the Bodhi tree. In an instant they are all revealed. You should make haste to the thus come one. Vairochana has wisdom like a great ocean. None have not seen the light from his mouth. He now waits for all to assemble, and soon he will speak. Go now to see and hear what he will say. At that time, every assembly in all the seas of worlds of the 10 directions, awakened by the Buddha's light, collectively approach the thus come one Vairochana, drawing near to make offerings. For example, east of the sea of worlds called Adornments of the Flower Treasury, there was another sea of worlds called Adornment with Pure and Radiant Lotuses. Within the seats of these worlds, there was a land called Vajra Treasury of Strands of Mani. The Buddha there was named Infinite King of Dharma Water, Awakening Space. Within that great sea-like assembly of that thus come one was a Bodhisattva Mahasattva named Lotus Banner, contemplating the sublime Dharma. He and Bodhisattvas as numerous as dustmotes in a sea of worlds all came to where the Buddha Shakyamuni was. Each Bodhisattva displayed 10 clouds of characteristics of bodies of Bodhisattvas which filled all of space and did not disperse. They further displayed 10 clouds of light, raining down myriads of precious lotus blossoms. They further displayed 10 clouds of jeweled summits of Sumeru. They further displayed 10 clouds of sunlight. They further displayed 10 clouds of jeweled flower garlands. They further displayed 10 clouds of every kind of music. They revealed 10 clouds of trees of powdered incense. They further displayed 10 clouds of fragrant ointments and burning incense of every form and color. They further displayed 10 clouds of trees of assorted fragrances, clouds of offerings such as those, as numerous as the dust motes in the sea of worlds, completely filled the air and did not disperse. Having displayed those clouds, the Bodhisattvas bowed to the Buddha and offered them to him. Then in the east, each Bodhisattva created a lion's throne from a profusion of luminous lotuses, and then seated himself upon that throne in full lotus posture. South of the sea of worlds, of the flower treasury, there was another sea of worlds called exquisite treasury of all jeweled moonlight. Within the seat of those worlds, there was a land called boundless light, perfect and adorned. The Buddha there was named King Sumeru, of universal wisdom and radiant virtue. Within the great sea-like assembly of that thus come one was a Bodhisattva Mahasattva named Wisdom that universally illumines the sea of dharmas. He and as many Bodhisattvas as dust motes in the sea of worlds all came to where the Buddha was. Each Bodhisattva displayed 10 sublime money clouds of a treasury of light from all adornments which filled all of space and did not disperse. They further displayed 10 sublime money clouds that rained down exquisite ornaments and illuminated everywhere. They further displayed 10 sublime money clouds with blazing jewels praising the epithets of Buddhas. They further displayed 10 sublime money clouds that expounded all Buddha Dharmas. They further displayed 10 sublime money clouds of multitudes of beautiful trees adorning Bodhi mandas. They further displayed 10 sublime money clouds of jeweled light shining everywhere revealing multitudes of transformation Buddhas. They further displayed 10 sublime money clouds, universally showing all of the adorned images in Bodhimandas. They further displayed 10 sublime money clouds of mysteriously blazing lamps describing all Buddha states. They further displayed 10 sublime money clouds of images in palaces in inconceivably many Buddha lands. They further displayed 10 sublime money clouds, universally showing the bodies of the Buddhas of the 3 periods of time. Sublime money clouds such as those, as numerous as the dust motes in the sea of worlds, completely filled the air and did not disperse. Having displayed those clouds, the Bodhisattvas bowed to the Buddha and offered them to him. Then in the south, each Bodhisattva created a lion's throne from a profusion of lotuses of sapphire and Jambunada gold, and seated himself upon that throne in full lotus posture.